And we are live, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome again to another Thursday and another episode of the Mattriarchy. I am, of course, Matt Reese, coming to you from Scottsbluff, Nebraska. Joining us, as always, in second chair is Matt McGibson.
Hey-o!
And tonight we are going to be featuring two creative teams, so to speak. Well, actually, one team and one other guy. But it's we've got with us right now Eric, and I do not recall your last name. I'm sorry.
Oh, that's fine. Berry, like strawberry.
Oh, goodness. Why didn't I forget that? Anyway, Eric Berry, who's part of the writing team and creative team behind Sporkman, who are currently, your guys are running the campaign for the trade paperback edition, the graphic novel edition, if you will, of Sporkman Goes to Japan.
Yeah, we just launched it Monday, so still pretty new.
So now you launched it on April Fool's. I can really find it if I look online, right?
Yeah, yeah, that was one of those things where I'm like, you know what? It's not a joke, people.
Hey guys,
what's Chuck up? Is joining us as well. Thanks, Chuck.
Yeah, yep. I was just finishing something up with Chester, so I had to finish up with him and then coming in. Sorry about that.
I'm just thinking about you and your friend could have traded first names and last names, and one of you could have ended up as Chuck Berry.
Maybe that. No, I'm just kidding.
All right, but how are you both doing?
Oh,
because one of you just got here, so like, how are you two doing together?
How was your relationship?
Well, we're cool. We actually haven't gotten to hang out a lot because we've been both pretty busy here over the last couple months. Eric with moving and me doing all the stuff for the comic. So yeah, I think we only got to hang out like one day, maybe like for a few hours, and that's it. So mostly everything's been by phone or online, talking, chatting back and forth.
So, Eric, this is one of those none of my business questions, but you just moved. Did you move closer to Chuck or farther away? Which way are we going here?
I moved farther away from everything, pretty much.
Now, that's a wise decision, if you ask me.
Yeah, you know, where I lived, it was a little too people-y, and, you know, now I live in the woods and stuff like that, and it's a lot more peaceful.
Yeah, I can't argue with that one bit. I live in the middle of town here out west, but it's there's you know something like 25,000 people, and it's still too many for me.
Yeah.
It's funny because Maryland is so tiny, but we are so densely populated that I'm like, oh my gosh, no one lives out there. Like, you said, 25,000 people. That's obviously quite a number, and each of those people do matter. But we've got town like a lot of even our suburban towns over here can get in the hundreds of thousands.
Yep.
The future will all be like Maryland. We'll all just live tightly knit together.
And don't get me started on Maryland drivers. Oh my gosh.
There's something else.
Yeah.
Because here's the thing. Turn signals, they're actually on the car for a reason.
Yeah, you'd think that with how many people get it wrong that they don't actually teach it, but they hammer that in driving school, and everyone just throws it out as soon as they get done.
Well, I can't bag on that too much. Out here, it's a sort of stereotype that the Nebraska drivers tend to forget to use their signals a lot, but there's so few people, almost nobody complains about it. So
I had a bad habit of leaving my blinker on, and my friend told me that it just confirmed his suspicion that I was a 60-year-old man trapped in a 19-year-old body. Or at the time, I was 19. But
yeah, I'm in the same situation. My blinker, the rocker, and it's been broken for years, and so my kids are constantly giving me grief about my advanced age. And I'm like, I'm barely 41. Give me a break. So you guys have, of course, relaunched the Sporkman campaign, and already you guys are getting quite a bit of love on that thing.
Yeah, we are right now. We are sitting at a little over 12% of our goal. You know, we are at $660. We have had 2 people back our Sporkman action figure tier.
Oh,
So that
wow.
has
Cool.
so that has helped quite a lot. So I'm hoping tomorrow we'll start seeing some more. I know a lot of people have been waiting for payday, so I've been told. So hopefully tomorrow we'll start seeing some more stuff happening.
I got to be completely honest. That's exactly the boat I'm sitting in. You know, so we're out there waiting on that paycheck.
Yeah, I'm the same way with some other campaigns, waiting on the paycheck. So I don't stress the big stuff, you know, too much.
Well, I mean, like, if you guys, I don't know all the breakdowns for the how that campaign math tends to work, but man, you know, getting 12% there in the first 3 days, that's something to cheer about.
I mean, we can't be Wanpool. I mean, fully funded in 1 day or downcast. You know, I would have loved that. But, you know, I was thinking realistically, we are definitely sitting better than we were on our last campaign. Mm-hmm. I don't even think in like our first 2 weeks, we even broke 1,000. Yeah. So on the last one. So we're definitely sitting in a good spot right now. I think we'll start picking up. You know, we got some channels that we're going to be on here in the next few days and next week. And stuff like that. Next Saturday, you guys are going to be the featured guest on the brand new Marmaduke show. Yep, we're going to be on number 1 Marmaduke. He actually is going to have, which I didn't get to tell Eric yet. We're going to have a Spork themed drawing contest.
Now this isn't this weekend coming up. It's the following one.
It's next weekend.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to make it. It all depends what goes down with the Comic-Con.
Yeah,
I may actually be there.
So, well, that's okay. You know, I mean, I kind of figured and stuff like that. So, you know, I just, you know, back stuff because I'll be available and stuff. So,
well, and one of the fun things about what Marmaduke is planning on doing with it is that his whole scheme is to take have a featured guest who can make it, and then also have a bunch of artists come on, or people that pretend they're artists like me, because I was asked to pretend for the day, and to do some fan art as a way of pumping up the awareness of the campaigns. So I'm really excited to see how that plays out.
Well, you know, I know if the people that backed the last one, if all of them show up and back this, we'll probably be close to fully funded. Because yeah. I think before we were over 3,000.
Yeah, we were actually close. We were like literally $100 off of 4,000.
Yeah, and our total goal is actually lower than what it previously was too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, how much lower is it? Is it? It's just a little bit, right?
$2,000 less.
Yeah, it's pretty substantial.
Yeah, yeah. So, but you guys are offering almost the same stuff, right?
Yeah. What changed was our coloring cost really came down quite a lot. So that was actually allowing us to be a little bit more flexible. And we also streamlined the tiers a little bit, so it made it a little bit easier to work with what we were doing.
Yeah, and in some ways, you know, having had to push it off and relaunch has actually been a bit of a blessing, because what we're offering now, we have some stuff we didn't have before. We have a poster, which all but the lowest tier will get that poster. Which is exclusive to the campaign, and we
trade
also
cover.
Yeah, we have a trade cover that's exclusive to the trade paperback, and the colorist we have for this, the pages she has turned in are amazing. So
now you're working with the same colorist that's doing the Changeling, right?
Yes. Yep. And if you want, I can actually share. If you want to, I can share the campaign for the back for your people, so that way you could see some stuff here going on here. Go ahead. Application window. No, I don't want to do the Sporkman. Application window. Make sure I'm getting to that one and share. Okay, so can you guys see here? Are you guys seeing that tier?
Yeah, I definitely see it.
It should be. I featured you on the thing, so we should have that.
Okay. All right. So what we're offering here then is, as you take a look here, this is our campaign. Basically, Worlds Collide is East meets West in a comic with homage to both Japanese and American culture. So we do have a new commercial we did. We also have some of the images. Here's Killbox's art that we're offering as a poster, and our friend your friendly neighborhood ninja is the one who did the colors. So on that, and then of course we do have the Natsumi poster here. What's that?
I just like that's impressive. If you go back to that man, like look at the shading and stuff on that. That's really good.
Yeah, that was actually done by was Sam. What was Sam's last name? Eric
Schenk.
Yeah, he was a co-worker of Eric's. That was we've had that poster available a while, and I'll show you guys the new poster we had just done. And then here's one of Ginger Foxy's colors. And Eric and I both agreed, and I actually was talking with Chester, and they agree the coloring was one of the big aspects of not having any of those pages the last time. What was hurting our campaign. And they said this time, now that they have the campaign, we have those on a couple pages. They said that really has helped our campaign, showing the presentation of it. And they think the color has really added to the project. So,
I really like it.
Yep, and then we have our original covers. That way everybody can see here is issue 1, issue 2, and then issue 3. Now you still get those if you come in at the base tier. You'll get those 3 covers on because they'll be separate issues for those who want floppies. And then for the trade, we actually got a new cover completely. And I don't know if you guys know Brad Ashworth, who's done the Handyman.
Yes.
Yes, so he did our cover for us. So.
Yeah, he was working on that the other day on a stream I was watching, and man, that thing is just dynamite.
Yep. So I'll scroll down here. So here's our art piece actually done by Ginger Foxy. I commissioned this specifically for the campaign. So the first 100 backers of our project will get this as a bonus.
Oh, that's very generous of you. How many backers do you have so far?
So far, we are at what did I say? 14.
Yeah,
14. So there's still a lot of room. Still a lot of room.
Excellent.
Still a lot of room.
And one thing too that I'm really hoping happens is our stretch goals. If we get to $6,000, it'll unlock a mini comic that we're going to add into it that features our character Natsumi from it, and it's kind of like a little epilogue piece that takes place after the main story. And I'm so looking forward to that because that would actually be like new story that we can add to stuff.
Now, when it came to, I think I might have asked this last time, but when it came to researching Japanese culture, was that a pain, or was that something you'd write something down, you'd be like, oh, I have to actually go make sure that this sounds authentic? What was the experience with that?
So that's something Eric and I we really talked about, because we were running with the theme where Japan would be like everything that Westerners would think Japan would be like in manga and anime, but we were still very strict on places had to be real places. You know what I mean? The swords had to be authentic, so the Japanese culture had to still be authentic. So there was a lot of research done on my end. Eric had me do those references, and I just gave him what he needed. We talked about things that we thought that would work and stuff like that. So we really made sure we try to keep some authentic as we could, but we did take some liberties.
Now I want to see. That looks like an action figure down in the lower right-hand corner. That might be the first time I've ever actually seen anybody put a action figure up as part of their campaign.
The only other person who did it was Trump, Timothy Lim on Trump Space Force.
I was about to say, I was like, Donald Trump getting in on this business?
I made action figures. I made the best action figures.
No
one made an action figure better than me. No,
like the anti-people that get really angry on Twitter. Like I could see Trump all day long just tweeting about them.
They're gonna be huge. Eric, go ahead, Eric.
So anyway, the figure that's shown here actually isn't exactly like what people are going to get. That's actually a static one that I did. What people are going to be getting is it's going to be like 3 3/4 inch scale, just like Star Wars G.I. Joe in that scale. But it's going to be fully articulated. It's not going to be a static figure. It's going to be fully posable and everything, and have like a cloth cape and all that stuff. We're actually going to be getting some figure blanks that come in red, and then I'm going to be resin casting the head and the shoulder pads and some of the other pieces and add them on. So people are going to get like a legit custom action figure. It's going to be really, really good. And 2 of those are already claimed. So, if anyone's interested in one of those, don't hesitate, because there's only 2 more.
Now I see you're kind of, so I guess you're the toy man of this group?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, I've been customizing action figures for a number of years, and my regular day job is prop making, and I do like a lot of diorama stuff for small figures and things like that. So this is kind of like the type of stuff I'm used to doing. But we figured this would be really, really awesome for the biggest Sporkman fans, that they would be able to get their hands on something like this.
Yeah, sorry, I just got up. I was eating a bunch of tortilla chips right before the stream. I just saw them on the counter and I grabbed some. So I keep finding little bits, and I'm coughing them up, I guess. And I'm very sorry about that. I know that's disgusting, perhaps even too much information. But we value.
I haven't heard anything.
I've just been going like, I gotta clear my throat a little bit. But I'm gonna be real with you guys. I like to keep it honest here. There are some things that you probably don't want to know, but because we value honesty, you're going to hear them.
All good.
All right, now how about this character down here below on the second print? What is this?
Oh, that is actually Natsumi done in anime style.
Now, who's the artist behind this picture?
So that is done by Danku on Twitter.
Oh, okay, yeah, I've seen him around.
Yep. So he does a lot of the chibi art and stuff like that. I actually commissioned him to do Natsumi in actual manga style, because he does really good manga style, or manga anime style. So I really wanted one there. So this is some of the art that's going to be featured in the trade paperback. So I was just giving people some different art pieces that they'll see.
Now I'm seeing over here we have T-shirts, decal, the trade paperback poster. The decal, is that like you can be able to smack that on the back of your car, show some Spork love?
Yep.
Yeah, that's like the vinyl cutout ones where you'll see they're like a silhouette and stuff like that.
Yes.
So you actually apply it with like a transfer tape and then pull that off, and it'll leave the sticker on the car.
Okay. Now, I actually thought I've been thinking about that a lot, that putting things or creating bumper stickers or decals is actually a pretty cool way to show. It's a good way of advertising, because someone's gonna drive by and be like, wait, what? They'll see Sporkman, or maybe they'll see, I don't know, let's just say Bigfoot Bill or something like that. And then they'll be thinking, it's like, what on earth is a Bigfoot Bill? It's almost like these little. In my town, there's actually a lot of conspiracy theory stickers, from InfoWars plopped around, and I'm just wondering how long they've been there, and I haven't noticed. But you know, maybe that's how that spreads. Maybe people know more about InfoWars because people are smacking it right on the sides of things maybe they didn't really care before, but now they're kind of interested, for better or for worse.
Yeah.
Well, it's also a subconscious thing. How many times do you go buy a car and that's got the peace symbol or the coexist symbol? You know, you don't think about those, but then all of a sudden, you know, they kind of like their memes, they just stick in your head, you know, and then you're like, oh, hey, I saw that before. And you kind of, you know, so yeah, different things. And one of the reasons why I wanted to do a decal is I also like putting stuff on my computer, you know, my laptop. So I thought having some sort of decal, people like those things. And they're inexpensive for us to make, you know, so they're a nice little add-on.
Yeah, that's the nice thing. People that, you know, want to support it and they might not have a lot of money, you know, that's something really, I mean, it's about as low as you can get, you know, donation wise, and they'll still get something.
Now, I also see a T-shirt on here. Is there a bigger picture you could pull up for those of for everyone who's tuned in and looking right now?
Yeah, I
can show what the decal on the T-shirt is.
Yeah, I can actually do that. I have a separate picture I can bring over here. So give me a moment here.
All right, go right ahead. Take your time.
Yeah, I'm gonna actually add that to the campaign then here, but give me 1 second here. Local disk. I'm gonna have to stop sharing for a second. Here.
One thing you might want to change, if you can, Chuck, is in the trade paperback plus T-shirt and poster thing, under included items it says Sporkman T-shirts plural. You might want to change that.
Yeah, I can't.
Oh, because it launched.
Yeah, no, because already people have already. Oh, I might. You're talking about the. Which one are you talking about? The T-shirt,
the $45 one.
No, I haven't. Oh, and the items included. Yeah, I can adjust that.
Yeah, because otherwise people may think that means more than one.
Well, that's only in that section, but above I have it and everything else. But yeah, I'll correct it. Here, give me a moment here, guys. I apologize here. I just got to get...
Oh, no worries. I wanted to ask, because I don't know if we talked about this last time, but which one of you wears the costume when you've attended conventions?
Oh, me, but I haven't done it in years. I probably wouldn't even fit it anymore because I've gained a lot of weight since I did that costume, and I just did some repairs on the helmet so I can take that places for promotions. But like one of the gauntlets is like completely missing and stuff like that. So, you know, if ever one day I got into shape again, you know, I'd love to redo the entire costume from the ground up. I just don't know if I'll ever actually be in shape enough to do it.
For sure. Okay, so let's see where we're at here.
Anime purists are going to be mad at your background.
Oh, because my sword art online.
Yeah, he's also got a fidget spinner.
Where are you seeing that?
What was your? I think it was your desktop background.
Oh, yeah, it was just Sword Art Online.
I'm in the unpopular opinion, although, like, I'm really not that deep into anime. I watched like the first 16 episodes of that show, like the part where he gets out of the hospital. Like that's right where I stopped.
Yeah,
and I was like, oh, that was a nice little show, and then it became this big hate train online. And then if you ever tell people, it's like, yeah, I kind of enjoyed that. They get really angry real fast.
Yeah. You know what? Unpopular opinion. I love Sword Art Online. I love every aspect of it. Yes, the second half of season 2 was very weak. I loved Gun Gale Online. I love the games. I play it. But this current season, they've been doing the Alchemization arc, and the guy who originally wrote it, you could definitely tell he got better at writing because the first arcs were always shorter arcs. You know, they weren't long stories. He wasn't used to writing in long form, but you could definitely tell like his storytelling has gotten a lot better. So anyhow, this is actually the print that is on the T-shirt.
That's cool. Now I'm actually thinking, wouldn't it be kind of neat if in the future, like, what if it was just like a red T-shirt that had like the S on it and maybe like a little cape decal or something like that, or like there was the deluxe T-shirt. Get it with the cape.
We do actually have it where you can get a. Now it's not going to be available in this campaign, but you can actually order it from our website where you can get it with just that decal.
Oh, that's really neat too. You guys have a website. I didn't know that.
Yep, it's www.getspork.com.
Spork, duh, or just Spork?
Spork. I'll bring it up here. Yeah.
Yeah, the thing with the t-shirts is we got to wait till the campaign's over so we know what to order and in what colors and what sizes. That's always the problem with any sort of clothing is you could go to a show or whatever and you have 20 different shirts and you don't have any in the right size, color combination, whatever that someone needs. So direct from us, we have an extremely limited number of shirts from our previous runs we did that are still available. And then what we decide to do is go to Redbubble, and I think it might be Cafe Press or it might be another one. I think there's 2 different merchandising sites that are print on demand that we went to. So if someone wants a t-shirt with one of those designs, if we don't have it, they can go to those.
Redbubble is the primary one, yeah.
Yeah, they can go to those places and order them there. Now, the downside to print on demand places like that is you pay considerably more, because not only are you paying shipping, but you're paying for them to set up to print just one for you. When we do print runs ourselves, we can get the costs down a lot lower.
Because we use a local t-shirt maker who does
t-shirts. Yeah, we're not using like a on-demand place. But one reason we don't really do runs of shirts anymore is you can spend like a few $100s to stock shirts. Now you're stuck storing inventory, and who knows when you're going to sell through them all. So that's why we switched to print-on-demand places.
Yeah, so you can see here you've got quite the healthy little selection of merchandise so far. Even for somebody of your size, I'd say you're one of the not one of the biggest, like the 100,000s, but one of the more recognizable, especially with a character like Sporkman. One thing I wanted to ask is, and this is kind of a goofy question, but when will you consider to have made it with merchandising, like Pez dispensers, maybe a toaster? Like, what is something you actually are thinking, like, yeah, that'd be kind of cool if there was like.
I think if we have like statues or action figures of some sort that are mass produced, that aren't just like a super exclusive low run. If we can get something like that is we're making a couple thousand of them.
Yeah, we get 2,000-3,000, even 1,000 backers. You know what I mean? Something like that would really make us feel like, hey, we hit the big time. Or we hit like even before then. Let's just say we had a 700-800 backers on our comic that back on the T-shirt. That's still, you know what I mean?
What was really kind of fun was a number of years. I guess it was maybe 2-3 years ago. I was actually at a local convention in my hometown, and it was like its first year, and I was set up there as a vendor, and I brought some Sporkman comics there to sell, even though that wasn't the primary reason I was there. And 2 guys come up, and they asked, they're like, "Do you know the writers of Sporkman?" And I'm like, "Well, I am one of the writers of Sporkman." And the one guy pulls up his shirt, and underneath he's wearing a Sporkman t-shirt that he bought like years ago. And that was just so cool to think that years after he had bought that shirt, he actually wore it to a convention.
That's actually really cool. And like, this is someone you like have no familiarity with.
Yeah.
No, I had no idea if he had bought the shirt online or at another convention or something, but he had one, and that was just something really, really cool to think that someone was still rocking something you know, that they had bought like years before that.
That's one of the really interesting things about y'all's project that I just really I resonates with me, right? Because you guys started the Sporkman adventure about the same time we were starting Ideal Comics way out here west, right? And very very similar moments in history and everything. And to see you guys get that fire and to come back at it and say, no, this was, you know, we thought this was a good dream once because it was. Let's make this a thing. Is something that is, to me, it's bracing, right? Makes me feel like I'm not crazy for having done it all of these years. And I just it's so cool that you guys have that same kind of thing going.
Yeah, I think, you know, from a lot of the other indie creators out there right now, we're kind of in a unique place. One of them is the fact that, you know, a lot of people, you know, they're just starting out, and we're like, right now we're trying to get people on board to get colorized, something we put out years ago, back before, you know, there was social media, at least as big as it was now, before there was really crowdfunding, at least as big as it is now. And not only that, I think the other thing that makes us unique is how we got to where we were with the comic. You know, we didn't set out to do a comic book, and it in a lot of ways it was people's reaction to the costume and the real life character, so to speak, and their reaction to that and the concept behind it is what took us to the comic. It wasn't we did a costume based on the comic. It was we did a comic based on the costume and people's reaction to it, and that's how we ended up with Sporkman Conventions as our first issue, which when we wrote that, we expected it was just going to be a one-off. So I think you know, that's some of the stuff that makes our situation a little bit unique compared to a lot of other people.
Yeah, and we were in a situation when Chris and I were working on it. We were trying to break in, right? We didn't have a lot of access to go to the big conventions, and we didn't have a lot of that kind of stuff, but we could write and we could send letters, and so that's what we did. We just collected rejection letters for a couple of years, and finally decided that you know, if you can't break in, I mean, if you can't
beat them,
break out, right? And so we decided to just try our own thing and take our stories and turn them into a universe. And we did desperately is not the right word, but passionately wanted to tell comic stories. And it's just something that we've, you know, in one shape or another just kept doing, you know, for years and years. And I think you're right. I think we're at a unique place in the history of indie comics, because we're at a convergence. You know, we're at a place where social media and crowdfunding have like intersected in a way that makes it really possible to seek out those goals.
Yeah, those resources just weren't there really when we started out. And so, you know, for us, it's like, had to scrape all the funds together yourself. And then, you know, you had to print. Okay, how are you going to sell it? Well, you can sell it online. How do you get people to go to your website? You know, all those were challenges that haven't necessarily gone away, but they've been alleviated to a great extent, because now those resources are out there that really weren't before. Yeah. And you know, that's really given a lot of people an outlet, where before, I think, you know, you would have people that were just stuck. You know, they couldn't get the money together themselves to do printing or anything like that. And if that was the case, they were just stuck. They couldn't go forward at all.
Yep. Or
I've said that like a billion times on this show, and that's something that I am thankful for every single day. With them, as much garbage that the internet has brought with it, and the amount of damage it's done to our ability to communicate, it did give us the ability to actually make our own. Well, over a decade ago, our own, like, you know, videos. almost like making TV, where a lot of people made a career out of that. Now making comics, which you figure it would have kind of gone the other way around, that comics would have gone more mainstream before the videos. But
I mean, there was a time when webcomics were ascendant, you know, from 1998 to probably 2005, 2006, where there was a big boom in webcomics that they became kind of the YouTube kind of feel to it. But I think part of the problem that we had is, I think there was two things. There was the easy access meant to a real glut of it, and that deadened it. But at the same time, comics as a whole were dropping off of the radar. At the same time, comic movies were becoming this huge thing, and the Marvel Cinematic Universe became this huge thing. At the same time, comic books and actually going to the shops or being able to pick them up at the corner store, all that stuff was just slowly dying. And so it was a thing where web comics existed, but they didn't mean anything. They weren't part of our consciousness, except for like 3 of them.
Well, I think a lot of the webcomic stuff, you know, it was a reaction to not having those resources to get a comic printed and sell it. Mm-hmm. So it was like, well, if I can't find a way to make money off of it, if I can't get it printed, at least I can share it with people. And I think that's what a lot of it was. It was basically kind of their version of DeviantArt, you know. We're just going to be able to put this out there as a web comic just so we can do it.
Yeah, absolutely. That's why Forces of Good and Evil has 10 years of stories on there, right? That was exactly the reason, is because this was a platform that we could get into that people could find. Because the chances of us being able to drive, you know, 2.5 hours to a comic shop and try to convince them to put our books in, just maybe, that just wasn't going to happen. It wasn't feasible.
Well, I think the other thing right now is kind of the way movies happened in the movies. When Eric and we did our first film, it's almost like the indies is what ends up keeping the industry alive, because you had the same thing happen in the movie industry. How many of these independent creators like Jordan Peele and all these guys came in from doing their own thing. Now they're the ones creating the movies, trying to keep the movie industry alive. Because the movie industry has pretty much turned into trash for the last, 15, 20 years. Same thing with the comics industry. Same thing with the music industry. The indies seems to refuel that industry and stuff like that. And I think that's where we are on the comic is, you know, and I'm not just talking about CG. I'm talking about all the indie scene, you know, be it on Kickstarter, be it on people that are doing, you know, what you guys are doing, what we're doing. I think we are going to keep comics alive for the next generation.
I hope so. I mean, that's been my hope. And the thing that's, you know, been a driving force in my life, I definitely think is the dream. And this is something that I'm really interested to have a show on in the future. But you look at like comics culture, manga culture in Japan, and how they're friggin' everywhere. And it is ridiculous that's not. I mean, America invented comic books. It is ridiculous that other places have stronger comic book cultures than we do.
Well, I think what the issue is Americans have never gotten out of the mentality that comics are for kids. I think that's where the problem is. We got to really change that narrative. And this is one of the things I fell in love with anime and manga with, is because they could tell adult stories, you know, and also kids stories and stuff like that. You know, that's what we need to do. Basically, we need to get it out of this mentality, you know, that, you know, cartoons, comics, whatever you want, are just for kids. You could tell a good story that's all age, or a good story like The Expositor that is meant for adults or something like that, that everyone can enjoy.
Yeah, and I think that's the other side of it too, though, is, I mean, that was a big push from the 86 on, really, was that comics are for grown-ups. Mm-hmm. Then we also at the same time killed the comics for kids, right?
Yeah.
But overpricing them, making them unavailable, all that kind of stuff.
So we've gone the opposite direction.
I think so. And that's one of the things I love about Sporkman, right? To bring this back to you guys' project, one of the things I absolutely love about it is you guys have a product it's got these complex motives, this really clever satire, this real fun stuff, but also it's such a fun romp, right? It's just a joy, and it's something that I think that a kid can pick up and just be like, it's silly, but it's fun, and a grown up can pick up and say it's silly, but it's good. And I'm just that it's got that enough meat to be chewy, but that it's still got the strength to it, and I love that about it.
And I don't thank you. Yeah, thank you. And I don't think we really. I mean, we wanted to. I think Eric will agree with this. We wanted to write Sporkman because how we like comics. You know what I mean? It's something that we know we would go and pick up and read. And I know Eric is not a big superhero comic book reader. I'm the more superhero comic book reader, but Eric likes superheroes enough that it's still something that he was interested in creating. So it's not just something that we want to see kids with. It's something we would want to go read too.
Yeah, that's my way of thinking about things. Is some people tend to go, it's like, okay, what do other people really like? I tend to think, and this isn't always the best way to go about things, but I think when it comes to us with our passion projects, we're thinking, oh, okay, this is the kind of book that I want, and I hope that people out there want it too.
Yeah, you kind of have to, because with something where you're dealing with storytelling and art and stuff like that, if you were making, a car and you were in the business of making cars, yeah, you say, you know what, we're gonna change this, we're gonna change this because these are the trends that people tend to like. You're trying to sell a product, but when you're doing any sort of artistic endeavor, whether it's a movie, comic, whatever, you have to somewhat stay true to yourself, and sometimes it may mean you don't sell anything, because not enough people care for it. But by the same token, you don't want to pervert your project so much that you don't even like it. You're like, well, this isn't what I wanted to do. This isn't what I wanted to tell. But people will buy it. There's some people that would maybe be willing to do it. It all depends on how important is the money to you, and how much is the story important to you.
I think that's one of the things about art that we have is we realize that we are serving the patrons, right? But at the same time, and it's not to take away from that at all, what we're serving the patrons is not just candy, right? It's something greater than that. If we're doing art, we're talking about the good and the beautiful and the important and the lasting. And so it's a lot more like convincing your kid to take his medicine than it is just giving them something that they want. You gotta do both things. I think you can't.
Yeah, it's definitely seeing what change is necessary in the industry and saying like, okay, well, this isn't how things are supposed to be done. People say, well, yeah, well, how do you think they're supposed to be done? You show them.
Yeah. I think that's one of the big things that we saw. At least I did, and I'm not. That's something I never really addressed with Eric. I think we've kind of briefly touched on it. Is just we saw this trend that like I said, don't get me wrong, we both like our dark comics, but we saw that there wasn't stuff out there that, like I said, we didn't set out to make this an all-age comic, but it was something we wanted to have fun with that we saw lacking in the comic industry. And that we wanted to have fun with, heck, when you're sitting around at 3:30 in the morning, you're coming up with silly superhero names and stuff like that.
It always is at the weirdest times. Like, and I get a lot of my ideas when I'm driving somewhere, and I can't have my hands on things. So like, as soon as I pull up to a light, like I'll just like go to my notes and like yell at Siri to write something down for me because I don't want to forget it. I'm like, oh, this is really funny. or at least I think it is. I have a weird, very strange sense of humor. But I'm like, oh, this is really good. I got to write this down. This is brilliant. And I constantly have to do it. And it's always at the worst time. It's like farts. Ideas are like farts.
That's the weirdest thing you've said today.
That would be on the weirder end of things I've said on this stream, but definitely not on the weirder end of things I've said in IRL.
Yeah, perhaps.
But it's true.
Yeah. Oh man, sorry about that, guys. I apologize, sir. Allergies are bothering me.
Pollen is being a little.
So one of the things that I specifically noticed about this campaign too is, and I was actually gonna message you to ask about the difference. Is you are still offering the floppy versions of Sporkman Goes to Japan,
yeah,
as well as the trade version of it. What are the big differences between those products?
So the trade actually has bonus art. Both sides, both will be colored. So the floppies will get the colored versions. They just won't get the bonus art collection.
And is it going to have the new lettering? Because you've got Jayashiro doing the lettering, right?
Yeah, Jayashiro is going to be doing the lettering. Yes, it will have all the colors and letters.
Very cool. Very cool.
Yeah. So far, Japan, it's only been offered as the floppies and in black and white, and there hasn't been any bonus material in the back of them. The main difference is the floppies, they're going to be colorized, but they're not going to have any bonus content in it. But then if someone gets the trade, that's where you're going to get the bonus stuff, and it's all going to be put together. The only reason there were 3 individual floppies to begin with is 2 main reasons. One, we wanted to be able to put a little bit out at a time. Again, when we did this, there was no such thing as crowdfunding. It was like, no, we need to scrape the money together ourselves to pay for it.
Yep.
So we were doing just a little bit at a time, and the other reason is we were trying to keep with like a traditional page count comic size. Now each one is actually a little bit over what an average comic would be, but the idea was we put out the first act, we put out the second act, we put out the third act. Originally it was actually going to be just a 2-parter, and once we realized we have all these big action scenes that take up more page space and everything, the story was a little bit bigger than 2 issues. So it works out really well because, like I said, we get to divide it into those 3 acts and those 3 issues. But we were only doing that for logistical reasons, and we decided from here on out, we're going to make the issue however long it needs to be to tell the story we're telling. So if we have a story arc and we say, okay, well, we want to tell this story and it's going to be 24 pages, so be it. If it's going to be 50 pages, so be it. But we don't want to do this in the future where it's going to be divided up. We would like to just be able to have someone be able to pick it up and get the entire story right off the bat.
Actually, I was going to ask you about this. This is something I'd like to ask more creators the more I have them on. What is your writing process when it comes to Sporkman, especially since you guys have 2 people? And I'm kind of curious, as a guy who would like to do some of this as a hobby someday. What do you guys do when you write? Do you have a guy? Do you do drafts? Do you just write as you go? What do you do?
Usually outlines first. And hold on, my cats are just here being annoying and stuff. Yeah, normally we do an outline, and we say, okay, well, we need to do this, hit these key points, and we usually do all that before we get too heavy into the script. But sometimes, if I know there's a certain scene that we're going to have in it, definitely. The next storyline we're going to be doing Sporkman on the High Seas. We knew there was this one scene we wanted to start off with, and so I wrote out that scene because I knew it was going to be there, and maybe some of the jokes or gags or whatever were in there, and then go back and make adjustments to that if necessary. If the outline changes and requires changes that way.
So yeah, see, my issue that I keep running into with different things, I'm like, okay, I'm going to let this just run out naturally, and it's going to take as much pages as it needs, and then I end up with too much pages. Well, or it would never be realistic.
Well, comics are really tricky because if you're doing a novel, you just write it, and you say, okay, there's too much fat, or maybe there needs to be something additional. And it doesn't really affect your cost the way it does with comics.
Because every single page has to be drawn.
Yeah, you're adding artwork into it, you're adding lettering into it, whereas a book, it's like, oh, okay, they just print more words on another page.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I guess that is that's a downside right there. So it's almost like, at least if you're looking at things in the very traditional 20 pages an issue type of thing, I actually have a lot of respect for people who can trim down that much content to fit into 20 pages and make each episode stand on its own. Or episode, look at me talking. I've been reading Freak of Nature. Yeah, by the way, great comic if you've ever seen it. Oh, Jeremy Lott has there's lots, right?
Hey guys.
Yeah, he has come right in. Jeremy Lott. We welcome him with lots of love.
Hey,
what's up, Jeremy?
Not the worst thing you've said all day, Matt.
That's okay. That was the worst thing I said all day.
No, it was not. It was.
Wow,
not.
I was gonna say that's a good day then.
No, you missed my. Did you want to hear my fart comment? Good ideas are like farts. They come out at the worst times.
That's true.
It's true, but you don't want to think about it unless you're me. Then you kind of get a kick out of it. I wish I wasn't. See, I'm seeing Jeremy. He just came in here. For those of you who are just listening, he is relaxing in a recliner, and I wish I had that luxury right now.
It's pretty sweet.
That just kind of builds into the. I was saying it earlier that a lot of my friends have this view of me as a 60-something-year-old man in a 20-year-old body, and I think that my love of recliners and how much time I would spend in them kind of plays into that a little. I don't know. That's what my grandfather. I always think about him in his recliner. That's why I make that association.
Yeah. No, I mean this is I'm sitting on a couch here that both ends of it recline, and there's also a love seat that both sides of it recline.
Humans were just made to recline. God said, "I'll give you guys a couple thousand years to get this right." I just gave you guys. You just came out of the water. You're gonna go over there, and if I do not get a reclining chair in the next 3,000, I will flood again. Okay, I'm messing around. I'm gonna do it for real this time.
Well, yeah, this is like a rainbow right here. Problem solved.
My wife and I just got 2 new couches that, like, all 3 sections recline, and we love them. It's the first time we've ever really had like brand new couches. We always had hand-me-downs. When we first got married, we had one where it actually collapsed in the middle, so we had to have like a board under the cushion and stuff like that. And then we had gotten a brand new one at one point that was a gift, but it was like the cheapest you could possibly get, and within about a month they were like completely garbage.
Yeah.
Oh man, I love that's what we have upstairs, and ours has issues, but I do enjoy me a nice reclining couch.
I think they're the way to go. Like it's if you want to kind of kick back, you might as well really kick back.
It's almost like the double-decker couch. It's like the natural progression of relaxation.
A double-decker couch. That would be interesting.
Lego movie.
That'd be interesting.
It's that's one of the best parts of Lego Movie. And then like the one guy is so proud of it, he came up with a double-decker couch. And then like the one part, the villain just sits there picking it apart. He's like, "What? That sounds terrible." Because then if you all want to gather around to watch a movie, you all got to climb over each other. Then what? Do the people on the bottom just have legs dangling in front of them?
We have dogs, and we have one dog who has the typical habit of laying across the back of the couch, and so we call that the double decker couch. So that way all the people and dogs fit on the couch.
My problem is I have a dog that sheds like no one's business. So and like I still love her, and I like if she didn't shed as much, I would totally let her on the couch if it was my house. My mom would never let me do that.
Yeah. Normally, I'd be able to show you the dog sitting right next to me, but she's in the other room right now. She's a little
Well, live streams.
She's a little dachshund crossed with a Yorkie, so she's a dorky.
Small.
Yes.
Dorky. I really like that actually.
Small, but with tons of attitude.
Oh yes, of course.
We have the inverse. We have big, fat, and does not give a damn.
Yeah.
I think those are my favorite kind of dogs myself.
The ones that don't give a damn, or the ones that are hyper.
The ones that don't give a damn. I love an old dog. You know, they're just when they've just decided their place in the world and just they're just there to rest and be entertained. And that's about it. I love that.
See, the thing is, I also like them. Like the only issue I have with my dog is that she doesn't really show. She doesn't really show a lot of affection in return. Like she will if she wants something, but she's kind of cat-like, and not even like the cuddly cat. Like she just lays down, you know, in the middle of the floor. Then you walk over. She wants to go outside. You walk over the door. You open the door. She looks outside. She looks back at you, and she goes back inside. She does all this like classic cat stuff, and she also trots like a cat instead of, you know, most dogs like propel themselves forward. You can really see it. This dog trots.
You know, my grandfather once said, you know, how in the world did they ever get the phrase working like a dog? He's like, have you ever seen what a dog does all day? You know?
Yeah.
Somebody was talking about, and that's actually really, really clever. But my friend told me about, you know, we consider gorillas so intelligent, but they sit around doing jack shit all day.
That's why they're intelligent, because they don't do shit.
They don't care.
But by the same token, they throw their poo, you know?
Yeah, it's I don't know. I'm laughing about this, and I don't know if this is like a little controversial or whatever. But I love those vegan billboards that say, you know, it's like, where do you draw the line? It's like all the animals. So then someone actually did. It's like, how about this? Like, I draw the line like right here, and then someone like actually made it's like a detailed chart. It's like, okay, like this is like apocalyptic. This is maybe trying to date a vegan chick. This is. Yeah, like I loved. It was really really kind of easy to make fun of.
Yeah, I remember my my dad was telling me just recently that he had once asked this girl out on a date, and you know, she's like, "Oh no, where do you want to go?" And he mentions like this steak place, so they go, and then they're there. And she's like, "Oh, I don't know what I'm going to order. I'm a vegetarian." And it's like, and you say, "Yeah, okay, fine." You know, to
why don't you just say that up front? It's like, I'm a vegetarian, but I'd be happy to go if you wanted to go there.
I will tell you, I'm married to a vegetarian, and I found out like immediately upon dating. I mean, it wasn't a question of that, and it made it a lot less awkward because I knew going in what we were getting into. I can't imagine getting too like, let's go to a steakhouse and then find out once you're there that no, I don't eat steak. You know?
No, I think it'd be great because then you go to a steakhouse and you can order the steak and she just has your salad. Problem solved.
The nice thing is that for everyone that's a vegetarian, that's like more meat for us meat eaters.
Yeah, I don't mind it at all. It's just you got to know the plan going in. because like, especially if you're just getting to meet somebody, and like if they weren't disclosing, you know.
Yeah.
Fortunately, my Amy is not a militant meat eater. She doesn't believe it's morally wrong. It's just not to her tastes, right?
Okay.
That's not what she likes.
Is she a non-meat eater, or is she one of those like she'll eat fish people?
No, she doesn't. She doesn't eat anything with eyeballs.
Okay.
I
My
always thought of
my-
fish as like a bit nastier than meat. I don't know why.
Well, it depends on the fish, frankly, and the way it's cooked too makes
I
a big
think
difference.
it's just something from childhood that's just stuck with me. Is fish are gross, meat is, or like, you know, it's like chicken nuggets compared to shrimp. You know, you're not really, as a kid, and for the most part, you're not really sophisticated enough to get shrimp yet, or get me, like, you know, you get it, but you're also, you know, chicken nuggets are awesome. So when you're a kid, you're just like, yeah, this is great. Seafood is terrible.
yeah.
but apparently when I was a kid, my mom made fish sticks a lot. Like we were
That
poor.
was the exception. I do remember loving fish sticks.
I grew up very poor, so you know my mom would make like these TV dinner fish sticks or whatever. And the one time my dad had said something about fish, you know, eating fish, and I said, oh well, I don't eat fish, and he says, well, you eat fish sticks, don't you? And I was like, I just thought they were called that, you know. I apparently had no clue. I mean, they didn't look like fish, you know.
Actually, that's a good story for me. So my little brother, there was a point, like he had no problem eating fish and meat through most of his life, but one day he just feels bad about it. And so because we're a Catholic family, we had to try and convince him. It's like, no, these are Lent sticks, which to me always sounded like lint, like drier lint. But you know, during Lent, when we'd get a lot of fish sticks and stuff like that, he'd be like, oh, okay. So then whenever it's like, yeah, Mom, are you all right, it's like, are the fish sticks ready? You know, you have to go back and be like, oh, are the Lent sticks ready? And then later he found out that like we tricked him the whole time.
My when I was growing up, my dad would catch a lot of salmon, and he was good at cooking it. So we never really had the issue of ooh, fish yucky.
Oh,
You know, it was just a kind of a staple growing up.
salmon is the king of fish. I could eat that stuff all day.
I'm not a big fish person, and I agree.
Yeah, it's quite good.
Oh man, I'm
You know what's weird about salmon is not only the color scheme, but also that they have like little beaks. Like, what even is the creature?
The chicken of the sea.
Gosh, tuna. Also, growing up and realizing that tuna, like, 'cause I always thought tuna must be these like little tiny fish, like sardines. They just ground them up, but tunas are massive.
Oh yeah, I agree. That's what I thought too.
Yeah, I as well thought that they must be that they don't look like fish because they were just too small to look like fish. But no, they're just part of a much larger creature.
They couldn't be big fish because otherwise, how would they fit them in those cans? Those little cans.
That was my.
They
line
had
of
to be
thinking.
little fish.
Like I was thinking, or I remember seeing that and being like, "Oh, how does it? It can't be that big. That's just a big one. They just found like the world's biggest tuna."
Well, you know, it's one of those things. You know, when you're little, you use kid logic. You know.
Yeah. That's actually something we're talking about in psychology a lot. Is the different stages or you got formal operational, concrete operational, and stuff like that. And we're just learning about the logic that children will use, and it's just the darndest thing. Like children are wonderful because they just have no idea how everything works.
Yeah, my wife's sister, when they were kids, she insisted that there wasn't snow on the top of mountains. It was white because the birds were pooping on it.
That makes sense though. Like that sounds like something I would have thought when I was younger.
Now here's a story of similar thing, and then we'll break the chit chat and talk about movie men. But
okay,
for the reals, a number of years ago, my buddy Raymond, a good friend of mine growing up, he had a stepbrother who was much younger than him, right? About 10 years younger than him. And one day we're all sitting around talking about stuff, and little Drew is just sitting there, and we're talking about how it's snowy and the snow is starting to melt, and Raymond looks at Drew and he says, "You know where all the snow goes?" And Drew says, "Well, it melts into water." And he says, "No, it melts into dirt." Say, whenever the snow's all gone, the roads are all covered in dirt and sand, and all of the cars are covered in dirt and sand. And you look right over there on the curb where that snow pile is. You look how the top of it's all covered in dirt. It's because it's turning into dirt. And Drew was just thrown back, just stunned. And of course, out here they salt the roads and stuff, right? And it's a mixture of salt and sand out here.
Yeah,
that's what it really was. But Drew was sitting there like, well, Raymond's not known to lie to me, and I see evidence of what he's saying, but I somehow just don't. And he had the biggest conflict in his soul about all of that.
Everything he ever knew just came crashing down. And normally you wait till 13 for that to happen.
At least. So let's talk about reality becoming fiction, becoming reality, and let Jeremy have the floor to tell us a little bit about Movie Men.
Okay, yeah, let's do that. So Movie Men is a comic that I wrote and that artist Douglas Curtis drew, and it's 20 pages long, and it's about a bunch of kids that work at a theater, and it begins with an usher doing what we've all seen ushers doing in movies, where the movie started, he goes in with his little glow stick to make sure that the exit's secure and no one's sneaking in and everything's okay. And right near the exit, he finds what he thinks is a bomb. So what would you do if you were in that situation? You would yell, "Bomb." So he does. And he gets trampled by everyone running for the exit. And he manages to get up just in time for the thing to go off. But he finds out that he's still standing. The movie theater is still standing. But the monster is missing from the screen.
That sounds cool. So how long have you been working on Movie Men?
I honestly don't know. I wrote it last year, but the ideas have been percolating in my head for several years. It started with Regal Cinemas several years ago. They gave their team members new uniforms that looked a little bit like dorky X-Men costumes. And I said, so I actually went up to several workers and I said, "Do you feel like a superhero in that costume?" And they all said no. But, I was like, well, how would that work? How would someone at a theater become a superhero? What would, and then I used to watch a ton of movies in the theater. I would watch at least 50 movies a year in the theater. Right. And, one of the glowy wand, usher thing, it was just a regular thing that I always saw. And then finally one day when one of them was walking through, something just popped in my head. And, so I did a bit more work and I thought, well, okay, so what if the place doesn't blow up, but, what happens? Something changes with the screen and it sort of developed from there. What ends up happening in the comic is that the workers at the theater are charged with trying to go defeat the monsters and then thus blow them back into the screens and save Bellingham, Washington from an awful lot of damage.
So quick question on here too. So there's multiple monsters and a whole crew of ushers that are called to task, right?
Yes, that's right.
Are we dealing with a multiplex like at a mall kind of a thing, or?
It's kind of a hybrid. It's I had him draw it as a little bit of a throwback theater. So I think there's working theory is that there's 5 screens in this movie theater, but it could be more. We haven't defined that. So if we ever really need to bring in a lot more monsters in a future issue, there could be 8 screens, something like that.
And so is this going to be like a beginning of a series you guys are doing, or are we talking about a graphic novel here?
Well, this is just a comic book. It's a floppy. It's 20 pages. The only way it'll grow is there's a we have a tier where someone can back it, and we'll do a 4-page backup story that features them in the story. Right? It'll be a Movie Men story, but it'll incorporate that person in some way. But I have in mind future ideas for longer stories. If there is a second Movie Men tale, it is going to be Movie Men meet Frankenstein and his monster. And I have other ideas I've been playing with. So we'll see how that goes.
Very cool. So now, are you the artist on the project as well, or
no? I'm the writer, and Doug Curtis is the artist. He does a couple of he does the Flying Ferret and Slammer webcomics, and we were part of several different Facebook groups, and I saw some of his art and just approached him and said, I need an artist. Here's my idea. Is this something that you'd be interested in doing? And he said, sure, yeah. And we struck a deal, and he drew it for me, and I really couldn't be happier with the outcome. I think he was a really good match for this idea. And like, I had him do the designs to start with, and it was one take. We didn't have to do multiple drafts or anything. Can you adjust this? He knew what he was doing. He went into it rolling.
Where did you start with comics? That's a question we always want to ask when that's some nice looking artwork.
Yeah.
What was your origin? What's your origin story with comics? We always like to ask this with people. Like, when did you first experience them, and then when did you really get into it hardcore, which led into your project?
Makes sense. So I'm 40. I was born in 1978. And that same year, Disney released a movie called Condor Man.
Oh man,
I very well remember.
I cannot find. They've never released it on DVD, which frustrates me. I was trying to find it once.
There have been some limited releases of it. It'll cost you a bunch of money if you want to get it.
It was a co-production, and so the rights are like a Gordian knot.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you could probably get a copy for about $35, something like that. I think that's what I paid for mine. But so when I was growing up, the video stores, I don't believe people remember this, but a lot of people do. At one time, it was prohibitively expensive for a lot of families to buy VCRs. Mm-hmm. And so what you'd do is you'd go to the video rental place and you'd rent a VCR and a couple of movies for, a set number of days. Right?
Yes.
Sorry, some stupid pop-up thing is threatening to... Anyways, so we'd go and rent this thing, and one time, we were looking at the Disney section, I saw Condor Man, and I said, can we rent this? And my parents made the mistake of saying yes. And then every single time when we went to rent videos, I wanted to rent Condor Man, right? And they knew they would have no peace unless they got me Condor Man. And so I've probably seen that movie 100 times. I don't know, maybe more. I just love it. It's this fun, insanely fun movie about a guy who is a comic book artist who gets who likes to test out all the stuff in his comics. And he gets roped into facilitating the defection of a KGB agent, and the CIA agrees to fabricate all the stuff in his comic book so they can try it out, and it's so much fun. And I didn't realize until a few years ago how much this movie shaped my life. It shaped it determined I was going to be a comic book fan. I would think this was cool, right? Because that comic book artist was also a superhero and a CIA agent. And it determined my politics because you had all these nasty KGB agents who wanted to stop this beautiful girl from coming to America and going to a baseball game. It was just insanely influential.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I'm looking at pictures of the movie and stuff like that for the first time. I'm just amazed that there's a Disney movie I haven't heard of.
Yeah, it's one of those things where Matt, the reason you haven't seen it is because of your great youth, and I'll let I'll let you in a little secret of the Mattriarchy, a little thing about it. When it's not a huge secret, it's just not something we talk about every week, so you probably haven't heard it.
Okay.
So I'm Matt Reese, right? And Matt McGibson is, of course, my co-host, and we met on Donald DeLay's live stream one time on an art stream there in the comment section, and there were 3 Matts. There was myself at 40. There was Matt Zvlar. Zvilar, I said his name wrong, who is about 30, and there's Matt McGibson, who's just over 20. Okay. And we were laughing about our same name and our 10-year, incremental age difference, and our similar feelings toward modern comics, and it just sort of became a thing. And I believe it was Matt McGibson said that we need to break off and form a Mattriarchy. And that is why we have a YouTube show called that.
A government run exclusively by people named Matt.
Makes sense.
And so with that, one of the things about it is I am the old man.
Okay.
And being the old man, I don't have the I just all of these things that I talk about, and Matt just sits there on the other side of the stream and says, I have no idea what you're talking about. He says, what's a popple? And I'm just like, why are we even having
How do you not know what a popple is? Yeah.
Heck, I can probably sing half the theme song.
Have you discussed Pogs yet?
No, we've not discussed Pog.
All right, that was the great savior of the comic book store in the late 1990s. Just so you know.
All right, Google time.
I actually, one of the things we talked about. Now we just had a campaign fail just yesterday was the last day of it. Yesterday at like midnight or whatever. Mm-hmm. But one of the things we had talked about leading up to it, as far as perk merch, was the subject between Barry and Rico and I. Somebody at once said, should we make Pogs? And we laughed about it and didn't go back to the discussion of it. So who knows if we relaunch, if Pogs will get on the menu.
You need to make Pogs happen, all right?
Okay, so they're like little cardboard looking coins.
Yes. Yeah, you would throw down, and it was a whole game that people played.
Yeah. And
it was basically miniature gambling.
And it had basically the same. It was the same set of rules as like marbles, mm-hmm. but instead of rolling, it was slamming and sliding. But yeah, it's a whole.
And there are at least hundreds of comic book stores that survived because of Pogs.
Yeah. And you, when DC was, and DC and Marvel had their Skybox exclusive sets of cards back then, and people would actually seek out the one or two in the package that came with Pogs, because they were like chromium Pogs that came with the special cards and all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, that was nuts.
Hey, Eric, thank God we're only 3 years older, because we narrowly escaped that generation.
Yeah.
It was fun. But I also think that led to the diversification of comic book stores into geek stores, right?
Yeah.
So after the Pog craze died out, then, well, what else was there? Well, there's games, there's and I don't think it's a good thing that there's sort of a greater that comic book stores are repositories of greater geekdom. I think that's good. It's kept a lot of them alive, but it's also I think there's enough overlap that why not do that?
My biggest thing about it is that specialty stores, and this is the thing I think is the big problem personally. Mm-hmm. Specialty stores, regardless of what the specialty is, specialty stores are not entry-level places for people. Nobody has ever walked into a candle shop for the first time they've ever bought candles, right? Nobody has gone into Socks or Us the first time they bought socks, right? People they go to QVC, they go to Walmart, they go to Dollar General. That's where they get their first taste of something. And if they need something nicer, or they become a real fan, or they want to get all the back issues that the candles they can't buy anymore, that's when they go to the specialty store, right?
Okay.
And because the direct market has replaced the model for the business model for the direct market has replaced the business model for the newsstand, we're not creating new comic fans. And I think that's where the problem really is.
Oh, look, you're not going to hear me argue that we need newsstand again, because we absolutely do. But to your point, there are people who were not comic fans who decided they wanted to come in and play some, Magic or Pokemon or something like that, and got into comics as a result of it.
Yeah, no, that I absolutely think is true, because a lot of those guys, they picked up Pokemon cards at Target, and then they're like, oh, they play Pokemon down at the comic and game store. Let's go down there and play Pokemon with all of my friends. And they sell comics here.
Yeah. But sometimes it flips the other way. There's only one comic book store left in my county, and there are two places that used to be comic book stores that are just exclusively games now, just because comics were just such a drag on them, basically.
Oh, yeah, and that's one of that. And with that, you're looking at what Diamond has to offer.
Yeah. But I mean, honestly, I think Diamond is a big part of the problem. But just as big a part of the problem is just the crap sandwich that Marvel and DC, mostly Marvel, but to a lesser extent DC, are just trying to feed us, right? And that's one of the great things about a lot of this crowdfunding. I'm not just talking about Indiegogo. There's a lot of Kickstarters. We're realizing that you're going to have to go around this system in order to do something new and interesting and fun. And we're doing it, and I just think it's wonderful. And that's actually seeing that happen. There are a number of websites for which I do a thing that happens at least once a week called the Bustin' Update. It just looks at Indiegogo numbers and what is busted 1,000 or 500 or whatever the increments are, right? And just watching it happen was really encouraging to me, and it helped to sort of spur me on to create my own comics.
And that's actually a question on there too, is you've had this idea for Movie Men boiling around on the back of your skull for a while. Yeah. What was it that actually made you want to pull the trigger?
Seeing people that are just fans doing this, people who maybe they had a little experience in the industry, but definitely not what you call pros, saying, darn it, I'm going to do this. And I said, that's inspiring. That's what we need to do. And I need to be a part of that. So, I approached Doug Curtis, and I have several different artists working on different projects now that we're going to be getting out there. And it's a wonderful, I think like Gamergate is not something I was involved in, but I'm a little bit familiar with some of what happened. Right. And it was kind of a stalemate in a certain way. There were some victories and some losses, but one of the big problems is that it's prohibitively expensive for fans to get together and make video games, right? At least of the sort of quality that they like to play. It is not prohibitively expensive for us to make comic books.
Yeah, and actually talking about that before you get on, just how much that entry level has dropped in the last even 7 years is remarkable.
Oh yeah. And there's just a lot of, because technology has advanced to the point that it makes it a little easier for people who had a hard time with this before to actually do it now. But you also have the fact that a lot of people spend a long time acquiring skills so that they could become pros at some point, and it didn't happen for them. And the reason it didn't happen is that the industry just kind of pancaked. And we could talk about all the different reasons for that, and there are a lot of reasons. But it's a thing that happened, and so you have this glut of people who are actually really good, who want to do something. And so I said, well, great. I'm going to go to a bunch of artists and just see, I don't have a ton of money, but I have enough that I can throw them, some maybe slightly more than beer money. They can put this together, and, we'll see if we can make this a success.
So now you're working on a series basically, right, with Movie Men. Are you planning on do you have any arrangement to make that how regular that's going to be, or?
No, look, Movie Men I don't think we'd ever do this monthly. Look, if it was if it was a blockbuster success, then that changes your estimation of these things, right?
Right, of course.
But right now, the idea is let's have, hopefully this. I mean, I think this will get funded. We've been at it for about 3.5 days. We're about 40% funded, and it's the goal is low enough that I can retail this, meaning that I can go to individuals and say, hey, just this is a thing I'd like you to know about, and just so you know, and you can buy it or not, I don't care. I just want you to know about it. And I've gone to just a lot of people like that and been surprised at how receptive they've been and said, sure, yeah, I'd like to get this comic book. I think that Doug did a really good job on the comic, and that helps a lot. And I'm very motivated. And also, you don't actually need to put together that many people in order to fund these things, especially if you practice price discrimination. Do you guys know what that means?
No, I was just going to ask you to explain.
Okay, price discrimination is basically based on the theory that you let people what they want to pay for a product, right? Within reason. I mean, you have like a tier that just about anybody can afford, and so at $4, that's where you get a PDF of this comic. One of the main reasons I did that was just because it's so expensive to ship stuff overseas, and I really wanted people overseas to be able to buy this, right? So I said, fine, here you go, $4. If you can scroll down just a little bit.
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and share this here. Give me just a second to lock my screen in place.
Go for it.
And jump over there. Okay. So we've got right here, $4 for digital. Yeah.
Yeah, $4 for digital. Okay.
And look at this monster here. That is just great. This robot thing. Good gravy. Go ahead.
That's one of the that's one of the pinups also.
Okay.
So it's $4 just for the digital. If you want that, $4. Almost no one is going to say I can't afford $4, right? Or if you want to you want this shipped to you, as long as you're in the U.S., it's going to be $5 plus $5 shipping and handling. So it's $10 to your door. Again, most people are going to be able to afford $10, and then it moves up from there. If you move back up a little bit, we have a tier that has the comic plus a couple of pinups, and that's been very popular. And you can see one of the pinups there, and if you look at the update, you can see the other one the coloring of that just came in today. So this is by Bicanales.
All right.
Yeah. And if you look at update 1, this is by Sean Hall.
That's great. That is just great.
Yeah, I'm very, very happy.
I love stuff, so that's a very tempting offer right there.
Hey, the more the merrier.
Right.
And so then after that, we said if you want something more personalized, you can get the comic plus a sketch of one of the movie men that Doug will do for you, right?
Okay.
If you want something that's even more, then you get a comic, you get 2 pinups, and you get a T-shirt. And then you really want to go all in, we'll give you all of that for $75, right? But then we didn't stop there. We also said, and by the way, the inverse are just for international, so people know.
Right.
That you can, if you can be a character in the comic for $150, and we've got one of those. It's a bit character near the back, right?
Okay.
And then we have a tier that if someone wants to have a 4-page backup story about them, that'll be $999.
Right.
So you let people buy in at whatever level they really feel like doing. You give them a bunch of different options for that. So that's what's called price discrimination.
Right.
Go ahead.
I love the line work on here. It's got such a classic, Sunday comic strip feel to it. That's just, I love that.
Yeah. He really killed it. I was like, especially when the mummy stuff came in, that you're just on. It's wonderful,
Yes.
When she's curled up in like a fetal position, it's the perfect sort of mix of horror and comedy.
Yeah. Very that has a very EC vibe to the page. So very cool stuff, man. This is a great looking campaign.
And
a lot of
it's hard to argue with that.
yeah. Look at the lighting on this guy right here. Look at that. That's just wonderful.
Yeah.
Okay.
And if you can go to all the way to the bottom of the last page, I just want to show you something fun. This is
the last page.
At the bottom. Just go to the bottom.
Okay.
It's the last page. There's this panel where he's reaching out of the glass, shattering it. This
right.
On the day that we were going to be sticking this stuff up on the website, I said, Doug, can you size these the certain way because it'll take me forever to do it? And he says, sure, but I really think this page needs another panel because I really think you need something with a hand breaking through the glass. And
right.
I'm thinking, we don't have any time, but I said, sure, go ahead, put it in there, and he did, and it's wonderful,
Yes, very cool, very cool. See, and that's one of the things I was going to talk about. I wanted to mention a little earlier, and I distracted myself. But you were talking about that you and Doug had that he was reading off your brain, and I think finding a relationship like that with an artist is as a writer, I can say, is so satisfying to be able to know that you're sharing the same vision for the story.
Yeah, no, I mean we really synced well on this one.
So very cool, very, very cool.
There's another project that I've had. He's only done one picture of it, but I've had. So I guess the Sporks dropped off.
Oh, it appears.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, it actually said they gotta go. So I missed that. They mentioned it in the group chat, but I was eyeballing all the art, so I didn't get a chance to.
Yeah, always getting in trouble because you're ogling pretty things, aren't you, Reese?
No, not typically.
Now, actually, I had a question
Sure.
about Mr. Lott over here. Where on the earth are you that the sun is still out?
Oh, yeah, we're right on the Canadian border. So the 49th parallel.
East Coast.
West Coast.
I mean, West Coast. Sorry, I said it wrong.
Yeah, it's pitch black where we are right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Matt's over in Maryland, so he's
Okay.
he's far removed.
I lived in DC Virginia for 7 years. So yes, I am familiar with the different ways the sun operates there. So
Yeah.
yeah. Anyway, and this is set in Bellingham, which is I live in Whatcom County. It's the biggest city in my county. Because one of the things is that they don't seem to have a super team, and I said, "Hey, I got one for you."
Yeah. No, I think that's great.
So go ahead.
One of the things that's been really interesting to see in the community is that there are several people that have taken their projects and said, we think these coexist in one way or another. Are you on board with any of that kind of stuff, or?
Well, I'll say two things. One, I could see any crossover happening with Movie Men because it's the easiest thing to do because they're characters. You can just have whoever I'm crossing over with be characters in the screen, right? And they pop out along with whatever the villains or monsters are. That's an easy thing to do. But I like crossovers, and I think they're a lot of fun. Very willing to do them. I don't like shared universes.
Mm-hmm.
I think that they're massively overrated. I think they get in one of the problems you run into with both DC and Marvel if you're trying to tell stories is you're really bounded by this continuity that comes, and not just with that book, but all the stuff that's happened in the universe, at least in theory. And it really cramps your style when it comes to telling different stories. And I don't want to do that. And I don't even have a shared universe with my characters. I want to tell stories. And if we want to do crossovers, then that's just a thing that happens because, they came out of the screen or something.
Yeah, no, I can definitely understand and see that. But I tell you, for my own sake, I take the exact opposite approach.
Yep.
And part of that is simply that I love dense continuity. I cut my comic book teeth in the Batman universe as overseen by Denny O'Neil,
Yeah.
and with Ron Fortier's Green Hornet from Now Comics back in the '90s, where I thought one of the genius moves of his piece was to take every Green Hornet story from the '30s on and craft it into a single timeline, a cross media timeline. So if I was listening to old radio shows from the '40s or watching the Van Williams TV series reruns, it's all part of the same continuity as those comics I was reading. So I love that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
and I can understand not, but I mean, I'm a big fan. Roy Thomas's work in All-Star Squadron or in the Invaders from the '70s, and even James Robinson's Starman stuff has that same kind of complexity to it as far as making it really some of that. So when when my buddy Chris and I started doing our comic book universe with Ideal Comics way back in the day, we laid out a universe that is very, very thick.
Yeah,
you know what you're talking about having the I know what you're talking about having that restriction. But one of the things that I love about restrictions is that they either make a person lazy, where they don't hold to the restrictions they hold, or they make them work harder.
Yeah, they use like you cut out a lot of their land, they're going to use every single square or every single centimeter.
Yeah, exactly. And that's for me. I don't dislike the simple stories, but one of the things though about that I have taken into consideration a lot is when you talk crossovers, because I also love crossovers. But when I was many years ago, when I was thinking about crossovers, I would always be labored the, well, how does this fit in with the universe as a whole?
Yeah.
But then one of the things a couple of years ago, I ran into, I was given, I bought some comics from Bob Burden, did the Flaming Carrot.
Yeah, great guy.
Yeah.
Great. I love that comic, and it's wonderful.
Well, yeah, and my wife is a huge Flaming Carrot fan. And I ended up becoming Facebook friends with his letterist, Star. I'm forgetting her first name at the minute, but that's the way it is right now. And through her, made a connection with Bob and bought some comics to pad out my wife's collection that weren't available anywhere else.
Yeah,
because he still has some in a box in his basement. And so he sent along just a ton of like freebie stuff, little ash cans and promo books. And one of them was an issue of Cerebus, of Dave Sims' Cerebus, that was a crossover with Flaming Carrot.
Okay.
And it was the weirdest crossover I'd ever seen, because it's like a dream sequence that Cerebus is going through. And a door opens in the side of the darkness, and the Flaming Carrot walks in. They share a mini adventure in this dream, and then the Flaming Carrot opens the door and leaves, and that's the end of the book. And it doesn't change either character's continuity, but it totally fits within each character's continuity. So the history of the characters doesn't matter. They just shared this intersection in this moment, and that got me thinking about the back in the '90s, Batman Punisher, Batman Daredevil, Superman, Aliens, those crossovers that they were doing in the mid '90s that also just assumed these characters existed in the same space and didn't bother explaining interdimensional travel or any of that kind of thing. They just told the stories and they went with it. Yeah. And that was something that I've always loved off.
Yeah, I mean, I think if I was to think about this, my two favorite crossovers were probably Batman versus Predator and Archie meets Punisher, right?
Yeah.
And in both cases, yeah, like they just show up and do their thing and tell their story and don't worry too much about a shared universe. They're a shared universe because they're in the same room, basically.
Right, and from the context of that story, it fits.
Yeah,
and yeah.
And I also love DC, how they do the and sometimes it worked and sometimes it didn't, but they're Elseworlds where they just said no, continuity is getting in the way of us telling amazing stories, and so we're just going to say it doesn't count for this. Or to a lesser extent, Marvel did that with What If.
Yeah, well, and DC for a long time even back to the Silver Age did what they called imaginary stories, and that was one of those where they intentionally said this isn't affecting continuity.
Yeah,
Lois Lane has a baby, go, and that was one of those things that I thought gave strength to it, while understanding that greater continuity works for some stories.
Yeah. And I think the continuity is important, for the, I want there to be continuity within whatever series I'm doing. I just don't, I have no concept that a bunch of the books that I'm working on would mesh well together. Sort of different alien invasions that you'd have to talk about,
right? All
kinds of things like this. Just no, this doesn't fit. So I'm not going to try to make it fit.
I definitely think that's a prudent way to go about doing that. And I mean, once again, a lot of it depends on, if you want to if you're a person that digs the deep lore, when I read Lord of the Rings, I read all of the appendices, because I loved it. And when I saw if I see an inconsistency on something, I go off about it, one of the things, and my dedication to weird, obscure history has probably injured my enjoyment of more than one comic book. I can't even read Grant Morrison anymore after the way he treated the X-Men and the Seven Soldiers of Victory, for crying out loud. Just, he's on my list. But with that, I can't disacknowledge that the guy's got talent,
Yeah. He just does something that you find deeply annoying.
Oh yeah, deeply. And one of the crazy things about it with Seven Soldiers is when somebody, like some interviewer who was like a real continuity dork, was asking him about how he was going to make these changes fit with the DC canon. He was like, I don't read DC comics. You bastard.
How dare you?
He's like, I just tell my stories. I was like, back of the bus, pal. My God. So,
man.
But yeah, the creative powerhouse. I can't take anything away from that fact. But
he's now the editor-in-chief or some big title at Heavy Metal magazine now.
Oh yeah, I think so. I think you're right. I think I did remember hearing that he took that over.
And Chris Seeley is going to join him, and I'm very interested to see what they do with that, because that had been sort of a moribund magazine for a while, and if anyone can save it, I would. I would say Grant Morrison might be able to.
Well, and one of the things about Heavy Metal too is, in addition to whatever else, the fact that it's like 3000 AD, where it's just a platform for all kinds of stuff.
Yeah,
it's a platform for the wild and the zany. It's not that it does lack continuity is probably a thing that would perfectly fit up his alley.
Yeah.
But I just, that gets me crazy. But that's part of the thing. So in the comics that we've created, we have a meticulous timeline that goes back to the Golden Age and into the ancient past.
Yeah. And you had an Indiegogo that didn't quite make it.
Oh yeah, not at all.
I'm sure I backed it, we'll see what we can do for you on the next go. But I take it there have been other comics you've published, or what?
Yes, yeah. Well, we've done super small runs on a couple of anthologies that we put together. One in 2006 and one in 2012. I think we got those both out.
Do you have any more copies of those around?
Oh yeah, we have some.
Okay, after this, not after the show, but I'll message you. I'd like to buy those from you at some point.
Okay, cool, man. Yeah. We're definitely. And with those, they're just, each of them are like 7 stories that are set within our universe, that vary in genre between very mild horror, like super mild horror on that. We've got some superhero action, some like all ages stuff. We've got some Western story. We've got some comedy stories. And one of the things that we've done with our universe is that we try to, we structured it so that any kind of art or any kind of storytelling, that those aren't impediments to fit into the continuity that we have, right?
Okay.
So like we have a webcomic we've been doing for a long time called Forces of Good and Evil. And it's very much a comedy title. It's a teen dramedy plus action.
Okay.
And it features a pair of friends, Chad and Greg, who are during their high school, they take an aptitude test and end up being sent to superhero or supervillain high school. And there's the goody two shoes, bookworm, do all the right things. Greg is sent to villain school, and the kind of abrasive, push yourself around, do it with a smile, devil may care Chad is sent to hero school.
Okay.
And so we have a fish out of water thing going.
Yeah.
But it's all pretty much played for laughs. And
Okay.
we look at how these guys don't fit into their particular idiom or whatever, or grow to change to fit into that idiom. But that's in the same continuity as our expositioner, which is, very serious detective story plus monsters.
Okay.
But yeah, so that's part of how we've wanted to structure those sort of things. And like our Force of Good and Evil is available on our website.
Mhm.
It's on its own website, forcesofgoodandevil.net.
Okay.
And we've got some mini comics on our website. We've got some other print mini comics that are in print that are out there. We've got some that are available digitally on our Comics Central store. And some not yet, but yeah.
All right, I'll have to dive into that after this then.
Well, I definitely appreciate it. It's we've been out here out there in the ether, making comics since 2006. So
okay.
So there is a lot to read. I know I've been able to guilt Matt into reading some.
I always feel bad about that. I tend to fall very behind on keeping up with web comics. And even my regular print comics, and it's just things get out of hand, and then one thing turns to another. We've talked about time and time again. Part of having or being in comics in general is noticing that there's a large stack of books next to your bed or on your nightstand, or just somewhere around the house that you're like, oh yeah, that I want to read that, and you just don't get around to it.
Especially that are just sitting there staring at you, making you feel guilty for not having more time to give them love.
Oh man, I actually have. I know you really want me. I know this is like you specifically talking about horses, but I actually have Donny Cates' Venom recommended to me by a certain man with no taste in food, and I actually have been enjoying it a fair bit. I've made it a commitment now because I have a bunch of books that I'm like, oh, I really want to finish reading this. I set it next to my bed, and before I go to bed, I make sure to read one chapter or issue out of each trade paperback I have.
Yeah. Well, that's cool. Yeah. So you're. Sorry, I lost my train of thought there. As my dad would say, it must have been a lie. Have you? So, have you gone to a lot of comic book shows and sold your stuff there, or done anything like that?
Oh well, we're out here in the not far from the Front Range of Colorado, and there's a community out here. For some reason, I don't know if it's that I'm not good at selling things in person, or if I overshare information, or if our prices aren't quite right, or something. But we have had a real hard time selling a lot of books at conventions and stuff. And so and of course there's maybe the conventions we're going to were the ones where people just go to the cosplay rather than go to buy the books. I don't know, but
yeah, no, that could be a problem at convention, because it's. I mean, I remember comic book shows where you just went to a show and maybe somebody was dressed up, but you didn't make a big deal out of it, right? And you just had a bunch of old sweaty guys, behind tables that had a lot of long boxes that everybody was, thumbing through as fast as they could. To try to find deals,
right?
Yeah, I really miss that. That instead of everything being cons now.
Yeah, and this is crazy because like that wasn't even available. Those kind of shows weren't even available to me as a child because I'm in the middle of nowhere, right?
Yeah, there's that.
I actually, and I like being in the middle of nowhere. I came back to my little community after I'd gone to college for a little while, and so that's something that I don't mind at all. But at the same time, we've had it's been something that when some of that stuff was still around when we were first getting started, but we didn't have the travel capital.
Yeah,
and so that's one of those things where that he's been on, and of course we're like one of the things we're looking at wanting to change up with our campaign is with our next campaign is actually do a little more talking about the future and some of the stuff we want to do and look at the possibility of talk about if people are interested in helping with the whole kind of capital investment thing.
Yeah.
Peter Samedi, some of the stuff Peter Samedi is doing with Alterna is stuff that ideas that I've had in the back of my head for years, but never had the position to make reality, and to see him take those same or similar ideas and be successful because he's got that platform are things that now it's like, okay, my idea was real and I know it could happen, so I want to follow.
Yeah. Proof of concept. No, Peter's success is just wonderful to behold.
Isn't it? It's amazing.
It's like vindication for comic geeks everywhere. Like, yes, if he can make it,
Yeah.
He is like an uber geek. When he succeeds, we succeed,
Yeah. Well, and like when newsprint, when comics started moving away from newsprint and the price started going up, and I'm sitting there like, I can't buy as many books as I used to. Before I was spending $6 on comics, and now I can buy, and I was getting, 5 books, but now I can only spend $6 in comics and get 3 books. Are you sure this is smart, DC?
Yeah.
And when that started creeping up on everything, I was just like, I'm not sure how well this is going to go. I mean, I kind of miss the old days. And even there was a period in time where I wasn't buying new comics at all because, well, for a while I couldn't get them in my town.
Yeah.
We didn't have a comic shop for a while. And then they weren't on the newsstand anymore. So I just wasn't buying comics at all. But I was still going to the flea markets and picking up, the back issues. I was still going through quarter bins wherever I could find them, and adding to my stack of unread comics. And but it was part of it. It was the adventure. It was the quest. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of great old comics out there, and that's one of the things that Marvel and company are going to have to worry about is that they have to compete with their past selves, and they're not always up to it.
Yeah, I'll give you that for sure.
So, continuity biting them, I guess.
Sometimes.
Yeah, but anyways, I'm just glad to see a lot of people saying, I love comic books. I want comic books to be as great as they can be, and I've got something to contribute, and doing that, and that's what I'm doing with this Movie Men campaign. I'm giving you, my best effort, telling you a story that I think is fun, and I think this will succeed. I hope it does, and I hope that it leads to much greater things afterwards because I've got a lot of other stories that I want to tell, and I think that people will enjoy reading them.
Yeah, I'm really excited for the look of that. I'm not typically a guy who goes in for a lot of the comic art. I'm more of a story guy.
Mm-hmm.
There are specific artists that have reached out and just grabbed me. Specifically, Norm Brayfogle is the very top of that list for me.
Oh, he was great.
Oh my God, it's okay. This is a little weird moment here.
Sorry.
No, it's fine. I am not usually one of those guys that gets emotional about celebrities. because I don't know them. They're not my family. They're not my business. Norm's death still gets me sometimes because his art was so meaningful to me when I needed. I got into comics. I got into Batman hardcore back in 1990, 1991. And for a good 6-7 months, like, Norm Brayfogel's art was the voice of truth for me, right? There was something clean and pristine and good and pure and beautiful in his stuff, and so it's hard for me to sometimes, every once again, it just hits me about that. So and we were acquaintances on Facebook, and he didn't care for a lot of my opinions about politics. But that doesn't, they say don't meet your heroes, but that did not in any way change the what his art meant to me. And like I said, there are not many artists that have hit me like that, but Norm's stuff just it's emotional for me.
I'm out of curiosity. I know we are coming up on the end of our show, but did you just like meet him and be like, hey, so let's talk politics?
No, it's one of those. Well, I don't know if you use Facebook, Matt, but when you friend somebody, Facebook, it's kind of like Twitter, where it puts it on a priority for the kind of things that you see of theirs and they see of yours.
Yeah.
And I have a lot of political opinions, as you know well. And I also really like his art. So I would like many, many, many of his posts. And then I would talk about how I think that freedom is more important than welfare. And so then he would comment about it. And sometimes we'd have, good conversations where we'd come to like an understanding of each other's positions. And sometimes he'd tell me I was a fascist. And
he wouldn't send me loose.
But
yeah, I mean, look, I think that the sort of brotherhood of geekdom ought to transcend politics. It doesn't always, but it damn well should.
Yeah, and I can agree, and I think it almost always used to, because there was more agreed upon truth on the bottom of it, and that's one of the things that's changed in society as we've embraced a lot of as we've embraced the postmodernist concept down to the root. We've had 3 generations of kids being taught that nonsense, that we don't. I mean, like the question, if you've ever had a chance to listen to Chuck Dixon talk about his relationship with Denny O'Neil, that it's enlightening on that whole subject, because Chuck and Dixon couldn't agree on the how anything.
Yeah.
But they agreed on the what. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
They their idea of justice was the same, and their idea of truth was the same, and their idea of what is the ideal state for people to live in was the same. How they got there was the difference in opinion.
Yeah.
But that part of the dialogue, of our current dialogue, has just been diluted so much by 30 years of misinformation on the media, by actually more like 50 years of misinformation from the media, by an educational system that lies about the way political structures can work, stuff like that. And I think that's part of why things have gotten impolitic, is that in terms of the old use of that word, which means rude for public usage, something that people don't say in public is what impolitic used to mean. But I think part of the reason our demeanor has gotten impolitic is because we've so many of us misapprehend our politics.
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't know. We could have this discussion, but if it's okay right now, I just like to say that trying to tell a fun story for people, and I hope the politics don't get in the way of that, because I think stories are magical, and politics, just the thing that it can't stand is magic.
That is true. it is after the 9 o'clock little bell there, and I do want to say that while I guess I left it with kind of a heavy point, everybody out there who's watching, I want you guys to take time. In the description, I went ahead and added a link to the Movie Men Indiegogo, so please check it out. And I love the art on this thing so much that I'm pretty sure come payday you're going to be getting some of my bread there, pal. And I look forward to reading the rest of it and seeing what else you have going on next. Because if you get this project spread wide, people are gonna want to put that in there. So you've got some great stuff with it.
Thank you, appreciate it.
And thanks again. The Sporks have left, which is I was gonna thank them, but they'll have to hear it on the replay if they do. And we will just see you guys next time on the Mattriarchy. Actually, I will not be here next week. So we will keep you updated once we get some details on what Matt's doing, because he said he wanted to do something.
I have plans.
Matt's got a plan, ladies and gentlemen.
Nope.
So make sure if you check us out on Twitter or your other social networks to find out what Matt's doing next week. I'm going to be in a car coming home from Lincoln when that happens.
All right. Thank you guys so much for showing up. I loved chatting in the live stream chat with some of you guys, talking about the food. That was what was going on when you guys were having some of the heavier conversations. I've been a little extra tired today. I've been up since 6.
Oh, I get it.
Yeah, and it's 11 o'clock here now.
All right. Well, you guys go to bed. We'll be in touch.
Thank you so much, Jeremy, for coming on. And everybody, please check out both Sporkman Goes to Japan and Movie Men. Both are. We should have the links in the description, shouldn't we, Reese?
Yep. Links for both campaigns are in the description, as well as the link to getspork.com. So, and of course, Nacho likes to point out that he's the true stalwart, staying up till 4 to watch our show.
8 a.m.
Manchester.
Not to go to bed, lol.
He goes to bed when the sun comes out, like a real artist.
Or a vampire.
That's actually a pretty good theory. I mean, his taste in food is definitely inhuman.
It's just Manchesterian. You just got to know it. Anyway, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for coming on, Jeremy. And I'd love to have you on sometime again.
I'd be happy to be back.
Excellent. Thank you very much. But I'll go ahead and say good night and keep loving comics out there, Internet.
All right. Goodbye.